Hello, welcome back. Sorry I'm a bit late, but it takes me more time to set up for these live streams when I'm using maps, miniatures and dice. So yeah, there's not much I can do about that, and I have just not been able to find out how to squeeze the time in properly. But I am here, and I will be talking about magic mechanics for basic Dungeons and Dragons, or BECMI Dungeons and Dragons. I'm hoping that people will enjoy this. This I'm hoping will be shorter than you might expect, just because there's no way that I can do this, the kind of justice that I would like to, without having far more experience in the field of magic for basic D&D. I'm going to put up a poll. Feel free to take part in that poll. Grab some food, some drink. Feel free to ask some questions. I will be jumping back and forth from my presentation to the demonstration screen. Okay, so if you're wondering how this is going to work, that's basically how I'm going to do it. Is jump back and forth quite a lot. Anyway, let's get started. Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about role-playing games or rocket-propelled launches, for those of you who are very interested in that topic. No, not really. This is basic Dungeons and Dragons, or BECMI Dungeons and Dragons. This is the red box, and this is around magic mechanics and how magic works in that game. And it certainly has similarities to other versions of D&D, but it is also very different. So I thought it would be good to actually go through that process and ask you a few questions, but also present you with some demonstrations of how it would work. It's hard to actually demonstrate magic, I think, in BECMI Basic D&D. One, because I haven't had enough experience to be able to sort of do it easily, but also two, it doesn't lend itself well to demonstration, I think. But I'm going to do my best to try to make this explain and demonstrate as much as possible. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to break this down into a couple of different topics. I'm going to cover spell level, casting times, because they look a little bit different. I'm going to talk about spell components, schools of magic, duration of spells, that's very different too. How you cast a spell, that's different. I'm going to talk about concentration. Concentration, again, is very different. The area effect of a spell, radically different. And then we might be looking at a couple of miscellaneous recommendations, but I don't think I'll be doing recommendations for today. I think I'm going to just cover those things. Will I be covering specific spells? I probably won't unless somebody specifies that they would like me to cover it, but I don't feel confident enough. I feel like this is, since I've only played a little bit of BECMI Basic D&D, I feel like I can only explain as much as I currently know. And I'm currently being tutored by Wally DM, and he's been very helpful. So that's the plan for today. Anyway, let's get over to the demonstration side of things, shall we? Let's see if I can do this some justice. All right, starting off with spell level. Now, spell level, the level of a spell, how powerful it is. We'll do that. So spell level. Okay, so you know what we're talking about here. Put that over there. Bring this back up to there, wherever. Lots of things to actually control. All right, there we go. So spell level. So how does spell level actually look? What is it like in the game? Well, it should be obvious, but the level of your spell is how powerful it is. And the range that you're dealing with is from level 1, right? You get level 1 spells right through to level 9 spells. That's the highest level spell you can cast. Those are the levels of your spells, level 1 to 9. And your character level does not designate or determine necessarily the spell level. So even if you're level 1, it doesn't mean that you can just cast level 1 spells, although in this case it does. Just because you're level 3 does not mean you can cast a level 3 spell. It is very similar to modern D&D in that it follows that sort of progression where it doesn't match up. So it's important to understand that. Now, a level 1 spell is very limited in power, whereas a level 9 spell is very powerful. The other thing you will notice with BECMI Basic D&D is there's no such thing as a 0 level spell. There are no zero level spells in BECMI D&D, okay? Basic D&D does not have it. The cantrip or the 0 level spell is a modern creation. It doesn't exist in this version of the game. And the reason being is that Vancian magic is a big factor in this game. There are no infinite resources for magic using. It is very much based on the Dead Earth or Dying Earth books that Gary Gygax was reading at the time. Now you might be looking at that and thinking, well, what are you supposed to do as a spellcaster? Because you're not going to get very many spells when you're starting out at low level. What are you supposed to do if you probably only get one spell at level 1 as a magic user? As a cleric, you don't even get a spell at first level. You have to wait till second level to get a spell. And that's a first level spell. That's it. That's all you're getting. Well, you utilize equipment. One of the things you'll discover with BECMI or basic D&D is you have to rely on the equipment that you're using much more than magic. The difference is that a level 1 spell in basic BECMI D&D is significantly more powerful than a level 1 spell in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. Okay? Those spells are really, really powerful in comparison. So they will have a much greater effect. They can, in many respects, depending on what you take, they can shut down in a combat encounter pretty effectively. Okay, so that's spell level. So let's do the next one. And I'll just drop that over to there. And casting time. Now casting time is casting time is different. So let's just do this. Casting time. Casting time. Okay. All right. And if I move this up to here so you can actually see it, if I can find my little mouse, the cursor, there we go. Found it. There, casting time. So I'll remove that because that won't actually help us explain anything, unfortunately. And our casting time. So BECMI, Basic Dungeons & Dragons, casting time. So casting time is how long it takes a spell to be created. And in BECMI, Basic Dungeons & Dragons, there really is only one casting time that I could find and that I'm aware of. And that is a casting time, it's basically a round. It's just a round. It takes a round to cast a spell. Okay? That's it. Your casting time. So you get one type of casting time, and that is one round. So a casting time of one round is not what you might think. It's 10 seconds. So a casting time of one round equals 10 seconds, and you'll find that information on page 87 of the Rules Cyclopedia. This is all in the Red Book as well. So you don't have to worry about trying to figure out what your casting time is for a spell because there is only one casting time. I know that's a bit of a shock because if you've played D&D 5e or some of the other versions of D&D, you will notice that there are casting times that are very different. They flick back and forth, right? And I think this was done to simply make the basic game as simple and easy to understand as possible. I found it hugely useful to me because I don't have to worry about things like bonus actions, reactions, a spell that takes a turn or takes a round, or, you know, because there's the terminology is different. I don't have to worry about a spell that takes 10 minutes to cast, okay, or a day to cast, or 1 minute to cast. That sort of stuff it's just not part of the game. So that certainly simplifies things again. The other thing you'll find too is there are no spell components or reference to spell components and spells in BECMI Basic D&D. You know, you might be familiar with the fact that there are usually 3 types of components in modern D&D or 5e, such as your verbal components, your somatic component, and your material component. So your verbal component is what you say, somatic is the gestures you perform, and then the material is the material to use. But there's no reference to spell components or spell focuses in the BECMI Basic D&D. That just isn't part of the game. Okay, if you look at the spells, it doesn't work that way. Another thing that doesn't exist in BECMI Basic D&D is the differentiation of the schools of magic. Now you might be aware that there are various different schools of magic. There are, I believe, 8, and you don't have that differentiation. The spells don't actually state which school of magic they belong to because there is no real reference to schools of magic in basic D&D. That's it. Okay, so you don't have to worry about all that sort of stuff. I guess the next big factor, which is very different to what you're used to, is duration of spell. That definitely has some very significant differences. So I'm going to go back over here and we'll just grab this. Spell duration. And I found this rather interesting because I was expecting to see quite a lot of similarities, but there isn't. Spell duration. Okay, all right, next. Let's just line this up. Sorry, people. I'm looking at multiple screens at the same time. All right, okay, so BECMI, Dungeons and Dragons, basic D&D, spell duration. How does this work? Well, a spell is the duration of or length of time that the spell effect will persist, how long it will last. When you create the spell, there's a length of time it will last. So spell durations are broken up into a couple of different types. One is a round, which is 10 seconds. So you have the round. You then have a turn. Now a turn is very different again. That is actually 10 minutes. That's a turn. The next one that you often will wind up coming across in terms of the duration of a spell is a day. And a day is actually broken up into 144 turns. Okay? 144 turns. And then there is another one, and that is the permanent spell. Like it has a duration that never ends. You may be able to dispel it, but it doesn't actually finish. Now the information on that is on page 87 of the Rules Cyclopedia again. There's also one last one that you'll be familiar with, and that is the instantaneous spell, where the magical effect only exists for an instant, such as fireball, an explosion, and then it dissipates instantly. Okay, there's fire and then there's no fire. There is also another aspect to spell duration, and that is there are some spells that are concentration. So concentration spells require that the spell caster focus on the spell for the duration of the effect for it to exist. That also exists in basic BECMI Dungeons and Dragons. So it should be pretty obvious right now that there are some pretty significant differences to basic D&D, or BECMI D&D, and Dungeons and Dragons 5e, 4e, or 3.5. And ultimately, the difference being that instead of a round being, basically the time frame from everybody taking their turn, right? And usually you'd have turns within rounds, but it's the other way around. A round sits within the turn. And it's broken up into time frames. In the past, if we said, okay, if we look at how long it takes to actually do something, essentially we're looking at, 10 rounds would be, in 5e, that would be 10 rounds would be 60 seconds, because a turn would be 6 seconds, but a turn is 10 minutes here, and a round is 10 seconds. So it sits within that, okay? I know that's very different to what you're used to, so that could be quite confusing. But instantaneous spells, the duration is essentially the same. Permanent spells, there's no difference there. And concentration spells, although they work differently to what you're probably familiar with, they still do exist. Okay, and I will talk about concentration spells in a second. The next thing I'd like to point out is the casting of a spell, because modern D&D had lots of different ways you could cast a spell, but BECMI, there's very limited mechanics around casting a spell, and I will go over them. So casting a spell, let's do that. Casting a spell. All right, let's see if I can get this to work. I'll get rid of this. All right, so next, you can see how the demonstration side of this is very difficult with BECMI. It's a bit hard to do that. There are only 2 types of spells that you cast. That's it. There are only 2 types, and I will give you examples of them in basic Dungeons and Dragons or BECMI D&D. So because there are only 2 types, the first type is a saving throw spell. This is made either at short range or long range with a saving throw targeting an enemy. Okay, now spells that you might be doing are something like Charm Person, where you charm somebody, or Disintegrate, when you try to reduce them to ash, or Fireball, or Lightning Bolt, or Phantasmal Force. These are all saving throw spells. And then the second type of spell that you have in BECMI is automatic success spells. They don't require an attack roll. There is no attack roll. There is no saving throw. They just work. And those types of spells are things like Detect Magic, the Knock spell, which allows you to try to remove or unlock a lock or open a door. Magic Missile does not require a saving throw or an attack roll. It simply hits the target. Read Magic just works. And Sleep, again, does not require a saving throw or attack roll. One of the big differences between basic D&D and modern D&D, okay, the BECMI version, there are no attack rolls. And one of the things I did notice too is there's very few, I don't think there's, so far I haven't found any instances of there being a melee or touch saving throw spell. If it's a touch spell, the chances are it's an automatic success spell. Saving throw spells in BECMI Basic D&D tend to be short range or long range spells, and that's it. There isn't, so that actually makes it a lot easier and simpler to understand, if you ask me. I actually think it's quite good that we don't have too many things going on, so you don't have to remember too much. Hello, Josh. How are you? Fantastic work as always. Well, I hope it is. I hope that's the case. I'm hoping to get better at doing this, and so we'll keep going through this. So remember, automatic spells, saving throw spells, basic D&D. That's it. You don't have attack roll spells, and you almost never have, and I don't think I've seen any instances so far of a touch spell or a melee spell that is a saving throw spell. Usually touch spells always work. That's it. Okay, so let's get on to concentration, because that's usually a frustration point for most people. And BECMI does have some concentration spells. So let's just grab my rubber, rub that out, and concentration. Concentration. I don't know if you can quite see that. I've tried to squeeze it on as best I can. That's concentration. So how does concentration work? Well, there's a slight problem of concentration in BECMI Basic D&D. It's not very simple, although you'd think it would be. So concentration in basic BECMI Dungeons & Dragons, there are very few concentration spells in the basic game for BECMI. There is no reference really to a spellcaster only being able to cast one concentration spell at a time, but you must concentrate on a spell if you want to keep that spell going, if it's a concentration spell. There are only 2 spells that I've found that are concentration in basic BECMI D&D, and that is Phantasmal Force, and the other one is Wall of Fire. And much to my surprise, each one of them is worded differently. So the conditions for breaking concentration are slightly different. They work differently. One of the things you'll discover is that things like Dispel Magic will get rid of a spell being concentrated on. If you move around too much, you'll lose your concentration. There are other requirements, but the requirements for Phantasmal Force and Wall of Fire are different. You might be thinking, is there some sort of dice roll I have to make if I take damage? It depends on the spell. And the mechanics behind it are, again, different. A lot of the time you'll find there aren't a lot of dice rolls being made. If certain conditions are met, that's it. So for me to break down something like concentration, I would literally have to go through step by step and explain Phantasmal Force and Wall of Fire and what the conditions of maintaining that spell is, because they are different. The good news is there's only 2. And yeah, so yeah, if you're wondering, how easy is concentration? It depends on the spell you're using. That's literally what you're dealing with here. And a lot of the spells in BECMI Basic D&D are like that, where the wording is not consistent across spells, because every single spell works slightly different to another spell. They're very much their own thing. You're a brilliant teacher for beginners, and we appreciate all the work you put into your content. Well, thank you, Josh. Hi, Bob. How are you doing? Thanks for being on the same planet with us, Fred. You rock. Well, you're welcome. The Dungeon Minister, Conjure Elemental. Thank you. All right. Well, I'll make a note of that, because now Dungeon Minister has a channel, and he's much more versed in BECMI Basic D&D than I am. So that's always helpful when he's here. So I will make a note of that. I didn't know that was the case. Maybe I just missed it. It's a nasty one if you lose concentration. So conjure elements. I'll add that to my little list here. I'll do some homework. Conjure elements. Is it conjure elements or conjure elementals? Conjure elemental. Conjure elemental. That's it. Okay, all right. Add that to my list, and I will check on it later to see how it works. Okay, so let's deal with area of effect, because the area of effect is important with your spells and how they sort of work. So let's do that. Let me just go back. Where am I? I'm here. We now do this area of effect. And I don't have quite the sort of templates I would like to be able to demonstrate this properly, but area of effect. Okay, and I do have at least this. This might come in useful. I haven't used that very much, but you never know. As you might have guessed, area of effect is going to be significantly more complicated, and just the nature of it. So, oh, come on, stop doing that. Okay, cool. Stuart Rat, hello, how are you? Nice to have you here. Anyway, let's do area of effect. So area of effect for a spell determines the space that the image will change the environment or that space, or what the creatures in that space, how they will be affected, or whether they are affected at all. So that's your area of effect for a spell, right? You know this. So there's a couple of different ways that area of effect is actually measured in basic BECMI D&D. And as far as I can tell, one is volume. So that's a little bit confusing, because right now you have to think in terms of three-dimensional objects. So volume is important. I'll use my gelatinous cube. Okay, volume. So you're measuring that way. Okay. Now it might not be necessarily in a cube though. It's just volume. So that shape could be anything you want. It's just volume. The other one is area. So the actual area that you're covering. So a good example would be, this would be area. But again, the area doesn't necessarily have to be this shape. It could be any shape you decide to sort of fold it around. So that's a malleable thing, okay? So you could have anything potentially. So volume and area. The next one is diameter. So great. So we can do diameter pretty easily. We know what the diameter is. If we have a circle, the diameter is the space and the distance from one side to the circle to the other side. Okay, there's our diameter. We also have radius. So if you measure from the center out to the end, there's your radius. So we have those measures as well. There is the use of a cube. So a cube shape, which is basically this. That's a cube. You can measure spells. Some spells are in a cube. Some are in a sphere, and I don't know that I have a round ball floating around that I can stick on my, and I probably should have made sure I did have one, but I don't. But it would be a ball. So let's say this is a round ball. This is not a round ball. This is a dice. So a sphere. You also have a line. Okay, so you could have a line. A spell could be a line. Fire. Lightning bolt is a line. Okay, that's a line-like spell. And then another one, and the last one, and that is a number of things can be affected. Whether it's going to be 2 things that are affected, okay, or potentially 3 or 4. So it's not so much about what's the space that they occupy. It's about how many can you affect with the spell, and that's it. So it might be up to 6, it might be even more than 6. There's lots of different ones where there's a number of things, whether that's an object or a creature or something else. Okay, so those are the types of area effect spells in BECMI Basic D&D, and they are all very varied. Like they are so different to each other. I would say that the variation is even greater than what you're probably used to in 5e. BECMI does all sorts of things. Let's just have a quick look at chat, and then we'll go from there. Which is nasty. Yes, got that. Elemental is not happy to be conjured, so it turns on the caster. Well, that's always nice. So you conjure something, concentrate on it, and then it attacks you, and then takes your soul. No, I'm only kidding. What do you got here, Stu? You need to realize he's a time traveler from the future. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. That's why he's so smart. I don't know about that. Look, I'll make it clear. I am still learning how to play this game. But I think it might be interesting. So I've covered everything there is. The basics of Magic and BECMI D&D. That's it. That's the basics. There is one other thing that I was told I could mention by Wally, and that is reverse spells. And reverse spells are reversed. It's not very easy to understand. And I looked at it and I decided I was not going to try to explain it. So rather than try to explain something that is not that simple, there are some spells that can be reversed, but not all spells can be reversed. What I thought I would do is I would go over the two concentration spells that I had mentioned before. And we're going to go to basically to my head cam for most of this from about here. Unless you have a specific spell that you might like me to have a look at. But I'll make it clear, I need more time to learn the system before I can do this any justice. I'm really just doing the basics. Okay? You are from tomorrow. The tomorrow never comes. Okay. We are all learning, but I am piloting the ship, Fred. Okay. All right. You pilot away, Bob. I think Dungeon Minister doing a lot of piloting. Yeah, some can do the opposite, dark rather than light, cause light wounds. Yes, exactly. That's. But I didn't want to explain it because I knew it would be confusing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the book and I'm going to read out these sections on those concentration spells. It's easy for you, Pale Rider. Hello, Pale Rider. How are you doing? Weather control is also a concentration, but it's in the companion book. Yeah, well, I'm not even going to go there. But I can only deal with what I've got in front of me. So, but thank you for mentioning it, Dungeon Minister. Okay, so I'm going to take my glasses off because I can't read the small text. I got the rules cyclopedia in front of me. Okay, and I'm 52 now, and my eyes are old, and so nothing works the way you would like when you're 52, as I've discovered. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go over Phantasmal Force, Wall of Fire. If I can find Conjure Elements, then I'll do that, but I'm not even sure where it is, but I should be able to find the other two spells because I was talking to Wally about them the other day, so that shouldn't be too difficult. Okay, so first one, was it marked? Yes, Phantasmal Force. Here we go, Phantasmal Force. This is the one I was after. I need a drink of water before we start. Now, this is a concentration spell, one of the very few that there are. Okay, so Phantasmal Force. It has a range of 240 feet, so it's quite a long range. Its duration is concentration, and its effect is volume is 20 feet by 20 feet by 20 feet. I know what you're thinking. Okay, I know what you're thinking. The Expert Player's Manual for the Convoke Elemental. Okay, which I don't have, but good to know. Thank you for that. Have to get my RC for the reading along portion of your show. Well, that's fine. If you want to, you can. Apparently, Wally DM sent me the book. The hardest thing in BECMI is the immortal rules. Never really wrapped my head around it. Yeah, I've been told by Glenn from Mr. Welsh, the Mr. Welsh channel, that it's a very difficult book to understand, and the rules for it are very hard to understand. Okay, so Phantasmal Force. This is what it says. This spell creates or changes appearances of everything within the area affected, okay, which is 20 feet by 20 feet by 20 feet. That's the volume. The spellcaster can create the illusion of something he or she has seen. If not, the DM will give a bonus to the saving throws or of those trying to ignore the spell's effect. So this is also a saving throw spell. If the spellcaster does not use the spell to attack, the illusion created by the spell will disappear when touched. Now, one of the things you'll notice is if you touch it, it's just gone. That's it. There is no dice roll. If the spellcaster uses the spell to create the illusion of a monster, it will appear in every way to be the monster in question. However, the monster has an armor class or AC of 9. Armor class 9 in BECMI Basic D&D is basically you are completely naked and nude. Okay, you've got no armor really whatsoever. It's the worst armor you could possibly have. Well, you could get worse if you had really bad decks as well. And it will disappear when hit. So as soon as you hit the thing, it disappears. If the spellcaster uses the spell to create an attack, a phantasmal magical missile, for example, collapsing wall, etc., the victim may make a saving throw versus spells. Now, I've talked about that before. If he is successful, the victim is not affected and realizes that the attack is an illusion. The Phantasmal Force will remain as long as the spellcaster concentrates. So this is the section on concentrating. If the spellcaster moves, takes any damage, so if you move, you take any damage or fails any saving throw, his concentration is broken. So if you have to make a saving throw yourself and you fail that saving throw, your concentration is broken. And the phantasm disappears. So the criteria for this one is if you move in any way, if you take any damage, there is no dice roll to determine whether you will maintain concentration. If you take any damage whatsoever, you lose concentration on the spell. If you fail a saving throw for any reason, you lose concentration and it's broken. The spell ends. This spell never inflicts any real damage. Those killed by it will merely fall unconscious. So even though you might lose hit points and drop to 0, you're not actually killed by it. You can't actually kill somebody. It's not really doing real damage as such, right? Those turned to stone will be paralyzed and so forth. The effect wears off in 1d4 turns. Now remember, a turn is a little different to what you're used to, okay? Remember, we have turns and we have rounds, and in BECMI D&D, the turn looks completely different to what you're thinking about. It's not 6 seconds. A turn is actually 10 minutes, whereas a round is 10 seconds. So it's 10 minutes that it's going to last. It's a lot longer, correct? Okay, all right. Where do I go? Okay, I'll just move things around a little bit. And okay, cool. If the character does make his saving throw to realize the attack is an illusion, the damage sustained disappears immediately. So you do put the damage down, but it's not really real damage. And if they know that it's not a real attack and it's an illusion, then they don't sustain any damage. That's it. It's a little confusing, but you can kind of see how this simplifies the process. There is no concentration check. For those of you who are wondering, is there a concentration check? No, there isn't. You don't have concentration checks. There are simply conditions that have to be fulfilled that would break your concentration on that spell. All right. Now, what have we got here? I'm just looking through the chat. No, that's fine. Hardest thing, yes. Pale, yeah, that was very, yeah. The terms round and turn did get switched. So yeah, as long as you remember, it's the reverse to what you're probably used to. You're all good. Okay, let's look at another spell. I did mention another spell in the Rules Cyclopedia that I do have access to, and it's concentration as well, and that's Wall of Fire. So let's have a look at Wall of Fire as well. I'm going to take my glasses off because I won't be able to read it unless I actually take my glasses off. Wall of Fire. Where are we? It's a high level spell if I remember right. Come on. I have to put some page numbers beside all these things. No. Travel. Oh, Wall of Fire. It was so easy to find last time, and now I can't find it. Why am I having trouble finding this thing? Starts with W. Wall of Iron, Wall of Control, Wall of Flesh. No, we're not dealing with planets. Concentration, Wall of Fire. Wall of Stone. Oh, yeah. Okay. Conjure Elemental. We do have Conjure Elemental here in the book. So I can go cover Conjure Elemental because that's a concentration spell, which I missed before. Oh, and there's Wall of Fire as well. Okay, let's do Wall of Fire, then I'll do Conjure Elemental as well. So we'll cover both of them. Page 51. Yes, I just found it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Page 51. That makes a big difference. Okay, so Wall of Fire. It has a range of 60 feet. It has a duration of concentration, so it lasts as long as you can concentrate. There is no stipulation. One of the things you'll notice with a lot of these concentration spells is it just says you can concentrate. There is no, you can concentrate up to 1 minute or 10 minutes or a turn, or they tend to be written in such a way, and like they could go on indefinitely. You know, there is no sort of limit on it. But the effect is it creates 120 square feet of fire. So 1,200 square feet of fire. So you're measuring in square feet. Okay, fourth level. Yes, no, I found it. Thank you. This spell creates a thin vertical wall of fire of any dimension and shape. Okay, determined by the spellcaster, totaling 1,200 square feet. For example, it could be 10 feet by 120 feet, or 20 feet by 60 feet, or 30 feet by 40 feet, so forth. The wall is opaque and will block sight, so you can't see through it, and it's opaque. The wall cannot be cast. The wall cannot be cast in a space occupied by another object. Sorry, there was a spelling mistake and I couldn't understand what they were saying. Okay. It lasts as long as the caster concentrates without moving on it. So as long as you don't move, you can continue to concentrate. So this is different to the other one, the Phantasmal Force. If you took damage, okay, if you failed a saving throw, the concentration would end. But if you move, and what the one thing that seems to be consistent with concentration spells in basic BECMI D&D is if you move and you're trying to concentrate, you lose the spell. That's it. Creatures of less than 4 hit dice cannot break through the wall. So if your creatures are too weak and they only have less than 4 hit dice, and usually in BECMI you measure dice monsters in terms of power by hit dice, okay, they can't go through the wall. Creatures of 4 hit dice or more can break through, but take 1d6 points of damage, okay, in the process of doing so. So if a creature is too weak, it can't get through the wall. If it's got 4 hit dice or more, it can, but it takes a 6-sided dice worth of damage. Undead and cold using creatures like white dragons, frost giants, etc. each take double damage while breaking through. So in other words, what that means is if you decide to put up your fire wall, instead of it being a 1 6-sided dice, okay, if you're unfortunately undead, a white dragon, Frost Giant, you get to take 2 6-sided dice worth of damage. That's how that one works. And the concentration, as I said, is slightly different to Phantasmal Force. Okay, let's do the next one, which is Convoke Elemental. Oh, I've got bugs falling in my drink here. Come here. Come here. Darn it. I can't get it out. I'm just gonna have to drink the bug. Give me a second. It's just protein, right? Hello, Fred Huber. How are you doing? Fred Huber is a patron. The patrons support me so I can keep running this program, by the way. Okay, let's do Convoke Elemental. And Weather Control MU level 6. Okay, thank you, Stu. All right, so Convoke Elemental, which is also a concentration spell. So it has a range of 240 feet. Concentration, there's no limit to how long you could concentrate on it. You can concentrate on it for as long as you like. Okay. It summons one 16 HD elemental. Okay, so you get to summon one elemental and it's going to have 16 HD or hit dice worth. This spell allows the caster to summon any one elemental, armor class -2. -2 is very good. The lower the armor class in BECMI, the better you are. It has hit dice of 16. It does the following damage: 3 8-sided dice worth of damage. And then you see the description of the elementals in chapter 14 of the Rules Cyclopedia. The caster can only summon one of each type of elemental. So that's earth, air, fire, water in one day. So if you decide to cast this again, you can only cast an earth elemental once during that day, or an air elemental once during that day, or a fire elemental once in the day, or a water elemental once in the day. You're only summoning one elemental, but if you decide to cast it again, okay, since provided you've got enough conjure elementals memorized, then yeah, you could do that. The elemental will perform any tasks within its power, carrying something, attacking, etc., as long as the caster maintains control by concentrating. The caster cannot fight, so you cannot fight, cast another spell, so you can't cast another spell, or move over half their normal speed, else he will lose control of the elemental. So that's to lose control of the elemental. So you can't fight, make an attack basically, you can't cast other spells, and you can't move over half your normal speed. If he loses control, he cannot regain it. So if you lose control of your elemental, you're stuffed, okay? You're not getting it back. An uncontrolled elemental will try to slay its summoner, so you're the target next, and may attack anyone in its path while pursuing him. So you wind up becoming the primary target. Sorry, people, I've got my nose going. The spells caster may return a controlled elemental to its home plane simply by concentration. A dispel magic or dispel evil spell can return an uncontrolled elemental to its plane. Okay. So that's it. So it is concentration, but the concentration on the spell is not so much to get rid of the elemental. Once the elemental has come into your world, it's stuck there, basically. Okay? And so you're losing concentration by either making an attack, by moving more than half your movement, or by casting another spell. Okay? And then dispel magic would get rid of the elemental back to its home plane, or even dispel evil. Okay, so that's you see, that's different again to the other concentration spells I just went over. Oh. So you got weather control, telekinesis MU5 requires concentration, even though the duration is 6 rounds. Okay. So remember, 6 rounds would be equivalent to 1 minute, because every round is 10 seconds. Okay, round is 10 seconds. Okay, that's how we measure that that time frame. Yep, losing control was always entertaining. I bet it was. So before I finish, because I'm going to finish for today, I'm going to have a go at explaining how Fireball works. Because Fireball is and Lightning Bolt is one of those other spells too, but I think Fireball would be a nice one to sort of cover and a little bit of a demonstration. Because I can feel my nose is about to lose control. I don't want it to go out of control, but it will. So I thought I'd cover Fireball. It is on page 48. Since I have a template, I can kind of show you how it might look in terms of Fireball and go over it. So let's explain it, then demonstrate it, and then we'll go from there. I think that's the easiest way to go. And I just think I'll just make sure I get this right. Is that correct? Yes. Cool. Awesome. Just what we wanted. Just what we wanted. So Fireball. Delayed blast Fireball. Let's just do Fireball, okay? So Fireball has a range of 240 feet, so it's a lot further than the modern version of D&D. So you've got a lot further range. It's instantaneous, so it's going to only exist for a very short space of time. It's an explosion, and it's in a sphere of 40 feet diameter, which is the same as your existing one in 5e, which is 20 feet radius, right? 20 feet radius. Well, you're dealing with 40 feet diameter. So it's the same space, really, and it's a sphere, okay? The spell creates a missile of fire that bursts into a ball of fire within a 40-foot diameter or 20-foot radius, where it strikes a target. The fireball causes 1d6 points of fire damage per level of the caster for every creature in the area of effect. So depending on what level you are, okay, that will change how many six-sided dice you get to roll. Okay. So, for example, where is it? Each victim may make a saving throw versus spells. I've explained how to make a saving throw versus spells in the past. Hello, Oscar. How are you doing? It's been a long time. Nice to have you. Okay. If successful, the spell will only do half the damage. So if you succeed, just like you're probably familiar with, it's only half the damage. For example, a fireball cast by a 6th level caster will do a burst of 6d6. Okay? So you're a level 6 caster, so you're using six-sided dice, and that means your dice output is going to give you either something between 6 and 36 points of damage. The characters who make their saving throw versus spells will take only half the damage rolled on the dice. Okay, so it works very, very similar. Only difference is that it scales. It scales based on your level, unlike your modern 5e version. So I think that's an interesting possibility. What I want to do is I want to just sort of give you an example. If I can just find the magic user, that will probably be the easiest way to do this. Magic user, magic elf, dwarf, thief. Come on, where are you, magic user? Yeah, there we go, magic user. Here we go. And Fireball is still a level 3 spell. Okay, still a level 3 spell. And you get access to level 3 spells when you are level 5. Okay, level 5 onward. So let's just put this aside. And we'll go down here. And shift across. So the BECMI Fireball. If you want to target something, you can. Okay, we want to put it. This is the space. This is the full distance. This is 40 feet diameter or 20-foot radius. So we place it where we want it, and that's where it's going to explode. So everything in this space will be hit. If I'm level 5 and I'm casting Fireball, well, that would be 5 six-sided dice worth of damage. So I'd have to get a lot of dice together. I don't actually have all of them. I don't have that many dice available right this very second. I don't think so anyway. But if I was a level 6 caster, it would be... Oh, no, I do. Actually, I do have some dice here. So this is what it would look like. So I'm level 5. I need to have 5 6-sided dice. That's what I would roll. That's what I'm rolling. Okay, and I just add those up. And as long as they fail the saving throw, well, they take all the damage. If they succeed, they take half the damage. Nice and simple. If I am a spellcaster of level 6, okay, and I've got my fireball going off, these are going to be hit with 6 of these dice. Which means that to get 8 6-sided dice, you have to be level 8. You'd have to be level 8 to be able to have the full-blown 8 6-sided dice that you're familiar with to be able to hit this target. That's a lot harder to do. Okay. The great thing about this is that, you know, the higher your level, the more you're going to get each time. It's based off how powerful your spellcaster is, not on whether you upcast. There's no upcasting in BECMI. Okay. I actually really like that as a system. I have no idea why Wizards of the Coast thought it was a good idea to change Fireball the way that they have. I think it's actually quite ridiculous. It makes much more sense to have Fireball operate this way. Okay, what do you got here? Fred Huber, BECMI 2E Fireball was entertaining because in a long, narrow passage, the caster could be in their fireball while casting at max range. I believe you. Sleep is so powerful versus spell. Okay, powerful versus sleep in 5e. Yes, the sleep spell is also very powerful in BECMI. Absolutely, Oscar. I used to take the volume of some cubes, feet, and blow up doors. Oh, I see. I understand. It's crazy powerful, how powerful fire. Yeah, no, absolutely. Boom, yes. Absolutely, I agree. So that's all I'm going to do for today. I'm hoping that I will get better at this. And the more I play BECMI Basic D&D with Wally DM and AJ Pickett and a few other people, the more I'm discovering that actually this game is, in some respects, much simpler and easier to understand. Certainly even easier to understand than 5e. But not always. Sometimes the shift around in terms of terminology and practice is a little bit different, a little bit hard to get your head around. But I'm hoping that I can do more demonstrations in the future as I get more familiar with the spells and sort of know what's going on. So I just wanted to go over the basics in terms of magic. You'll let me know what I need to improve. I will run this program again in the future. I don't believe it'll be anytime soon. I definitely don't think it'll be happening this year because it's now November here in New Zealand. And we've got, November and December. And so it's going to be sometime next year. I don't know when. It might be 6 months from now. It might be 12 months from now. It really depends, okay? It really depends on how much more I can process. What I'm looking to do... Hello, Prepare, Cook and Survive. How are you doing? As I'm still going to do some character building for BECMI. Next week, we're going to do some character building for BECMI. I'm still going to keep playing BECMI games with Wally DM and live streams. I have no doubt that we'll keep doing that. That will be a thing. But what I want to do is this program today is supposed to be about covering different systems. It's the translation. Yeah, it's not the system, it's the translation. Yeah, I understand what you mean. You left 5e for BECMI is simple and very easy in combat too. Yes, I agree. It is very, very simple in combat. Even casting magic is significantly easier. And I think BECMI and 5e are really only complicated if they're used to, if you're used to the other one. Yeah, exactly. I think probably the most complicated systems is Pathfinder 3.5 and 4e. I think those are probably so far as I tell. And I can't really comment on an AD&D First Ed Edition or AD&D Second Ed Edition because I haven't really played those games. Okay. I may have played some sort of concoction of AD&D second ed edition, but it was never really second ed edition. Okay, so I never really played that game, even though I had the books and I was trying to play the game. So next week, what I'm going to do is I would actually like to go back. I notice a lot of people keep looking for Hero Quest, so I'm going to cover Hero Quest again. Okay, because I like the game. I haven't done it for a while. It's been, I don't know, maybe 6 months since I covered Hero Quest, or maybe a little bit less. I don't know. And then I'm really looking in the future to do Shadow Dark, which is a clone of Dungeons and Dragons 5e and basic D&D. I'm looking at doing those, some rules around that, but that probably won't be till December. And I'm certainly looking at Merkbork or Morkbork as well. But yeah, for me to do better at BECMI, you guys have got to give me some feedback. I know some of you are very experienced, and if there's any advice, that's cool. But I do not want to go really beyond basic BECMI D&D. I don't really want to go into the other box sets. There's just too much complexity. It's hard enough to wrap your head around these things. You'll be noticing I've been dropping a lot of little shorts on my channel covering some of the rules to BECMI basic, and I'm glad they exist out there because they didn't exist before. But yeah, I'm going to take this very slow so that I get things right. So that's it. I'm going to finish off this poll. Let's see what people have said. I see there's a lot of people who've played BECMI Basic D&D. So have you played BECMI Basic Dungeons and Dragons? Yes, 50%. No, 44%. Okay, interesting. Out of 18 votes. Just watching, 5%, not sure. Glad people know where they are. You obviously weren't drinking when you were playing. That's good news. Anyway, I'm going to finish up here. What is happening tomorrow? Tomorrow I'll start early, 2 hours earlier than normal. I'll be starting at 10 a.m. New Zealand daylight time. I don't know what time that is for you in your part of the world. And I will be remastering the Ranger for 5e. So I've never been very fond of Wizards of the Coast's approach to the Ranger. And frankly, I haven't really ever been very fond of the Ranger in any version of Dungeons and Dragons whatsoever. So I'm retooling it. So yeah, I'm going to probably give that a good old hard slash. I'm going to slash a lot of stuff. I'm going to do some things that you're probably going to like and some things you're probably going to hate. Okay? But I have a reason for doing so. And remember, when I remaster stuff, I'm remastering it because of what I want and what my group wants. Not what a committee wants, not what Wizards of the Coast wants, and not what necessarily you want. But you might find some of the things that I present useful because I have a very different approach to seeing how classes should work. I hate the 5e armor class to hit. When I first saw it, it's backwards. Cleric Con, that's right. I believe the Dungeon Minister is going to be at Cleric Con for those of you who are unaware. So go check out Dungeon Minister if you're interested in BECMI Basic Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sure you will pick up a lot. Anyway, I am done for today. I need to go and have a little rest. Work has been brutal. Anyway, so tomorrow you want to hang out with me. It'll probably be there for about 4 or 5 hours. And I will rip that Ranger for 5e to pieces. So thank you to all of my patrons. I appreciate it. Thank you for supporting me. You make it possible for me to keep running this program. I want to thank everybody who took part in the poll today. I really do appreciate that. Anybody who's been just listening or watching, I want to thank everybody who's taken part in the chat. So the Dungeon Minister, big huge thank you. Stu Rat, Fred Huber, Prepare, Cook and Survive. Huge thank you to Oscar for being here as well. And I believe we had Pale Rider showed up. Yes, there we are. Yes, Pale Rider was here as well. And yeah, look, Bob. I almost forgot about Bob. And Josh. So thank you for being here. Wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the wee early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And yes, I'm probably going to do a lot of Deadpool memes, people. So suck it up, because there's more of them, and some of them are quite crude. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.